That did it.
Stand by with that morphine. 4 megs.
Where are we at, Dr. York?
It's tachycardic. We need to stabilize before progressing.
No time.
He's unstable. Progressing now would be a mistake. You're putting... Set to 300.
You'll feel a little pinch.
Now.
F.E.A.R 2 Project Origin is a first-person action horror game and sequel to the original F.E.A.R. It follows the story of Sergeant Beckett and his team as they continue the battle against Alma. Atmosphere. The game's atmosphere is very on and off, like the original F.E.A.R. The combat will trail off and you'll find yourself in a designated spooky mode. There's only a light feeling of isolation and maybe the tension in places like the hospital, but the game is very combat focused, even in comparison to its predecessor. There are some very creepy sections when you first explore the ruins of the town, but once the streets are filled with gunfire, the atmosphere is kinda gone. The environmental lighting isn't as dark or foreboding, you're constantly in contact with your squad mates, and radio chatter disarms whatever spooky things are happening around you. Also, it's very easy to find your way to the next objective, and the maze-like layout of the various facilities of the first game are streamlined here, so you're through and out very quickly. Overall, I think the heavier focus on the combat drains whatever atmosphere there is. That's no Harry Masons. Scares. Alma, the creepy ghost girl of the original game, has aged into a young adult and there's a certain level of creepiness lost there. She's more aggressive in this, but it doesn't feel like a vengeful, irrational child with unlimited power anymore. The number of times you push Alma back in this game makes her seem less threatening. They also decided to make her naked in this and then twist her appearance between healthy and malnourished in an attempt to gross out the player, which is just disturbing. However, one of my favourite things the game introduced was the ghosts, which have some very cool effects and can charge at you at top speed, which can be pretty frightening if you aren't ready. What keeps the game going is the random spooky set pieces, but I found you had to go out of your way to find them, and in some cases I was there and still missed them. The original game did a much better job at drawing your attention and catching you by surprise. That's still no Harry Masons. Sound design. The soundtrack wasn't as strange and hypnotic as the original game. Some tense pieces played, nothing that grabbed my attention or lended to the atmosphere. Most of the sound effects were okay, the sound design was neither standout, fantastic, nor terrible. Everything just felt competent. The voice acting was pretty fantastic, even if some of it kind of betrayed the tone of the game. That's one Harry Mason. Gore. The gore in this game was very impressive. Intricate diagrams were drawn in blood, disintegrated skeletons were tinged red, and piles of organic material were all that was left of some poor souls. Shooting enemies produced blood clouds with each bullet's impact, and in slow motion you could see a head explode and leave eyeballs and body parts. Whilst this stuff was not particularly frightening, the combat was very gory and very cool. That's 2 Harry Masons. Story. The story followed Sergeant Beckett as he made contact with one of the surviving members of the Armacam team, the company responsible for the replica soldiers you battle throughout the game, then eventually turned his gaze upon Alma. It's a continuation of the original game, but doesn't have as many twists. They also dropped tons of intel items, but made a lot of them totally irrelevant or unintelligible. They ditched the voice-acted answering machine messages in favour of walls of text, which slowed down the gameplay and made collecting and reading them a total chore, making the final score 2 out of 5 Harry Masons. F.E.A.R 2 is an exceedingly fun game, but it's not a great horror game. Slow motion, sniping people and kicking super soldiers is a barrel of fun, just like the original, so if you like that, this game is for you. But don't come to this to expect anything other than some gory shootouts and the occasional spook. Again, I'd like to remind you this whole thing is down to my opinion in horror games, so if you don't share this opinion, then that's cool, I get it. I'd like to point out that whilst I was a little freaked out by gross naked Alma, I did not scream like a banshee or run away from a computer, and I advise you don't either. There'll be more horror reviews in the pipeline, and thanks for watching. And always go check out Bombs in the middle of the night. Peace.